My name is Lena Cross, I'm 24 years old, and this is the real story of the time. I rented an apartment that should have been left unlisted. What began as a fresh start turned into a descent into something I still can't explain and still can't. Forget I didn't believe in curses or haunted buildings. I do now, because apartment 313 wasn't empty. If you believe places can hold memories, especially the ones soaked in pain. Subscribe, like, and share. This story is written and edited by Dark. Lifeside Diaries. When I moved to the city, I had almost no money and even less hope after my mom's passing and a messy breakup. I just wanted to disappear into some small place where no one knew me. Somewhere anonymous. I found it on a sketchy rental app. Studio apartment, $300 month, utilities included, no questions asked. That last part should have been a red flag, but I was tired, broke, and desperate. Apartment 313 was on the third floor of a forgotten complex called Hollow Creek Residences. A crumbling concrete skeleton hidden between two newer buildings. The paint peeled off the walls like dead skin, and the lobby smelled like mildew and iron. Still, something about 313 pulled me, and the landlord was an older woman named Mrs. Grinshaw, thin, twitchy, always looking over her shoulder. "You'll be fine," she muttered while handing me the key. Don't answer if she knocks, that's all." I blinked. "If who knocks?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You'll be fine." The first night was uneventful. Dusty mattress, flickering light, barely any heat. But sometime after midnight, I heard footsteps in the hallway, then a knock, soft, rhythmic, 3 times. I peeked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I went back to bed, heart racing, but convinced it was a neighbor or a prank. Then I heard it again, 3 knocks, but this time they came from inside the apartment, from the bathroom mirror. I froze. The mirror in the bathroom was one of those tall wall-mounted ones, dusty and slightly cracked in the corner. I hadn't even used it yet. He crept closer. Nothing, but when I wiped the fog from the glass, something strange happened. For a split second, I saw 2 people in the reflection of me, and a girl standing behind me, face pale, lips stitched shut, eyes wide and glossy. I screamed and turned around. No one was there. Reflection blinked out. The next day, I went to ask Mrs. Grinshaw if anyone else had keys to the unit. She looked startled to see me. "You stayed the night?" she asked. "Of course I did. Why wouldn't I?" She just shook her head and muttered something under her breath. That night, I bolted the door shut every window, left all the lights on still. 3:13 a.m. The knocks came again, 3 of them, but now they were louder. More urgent. Not on the front door, not the mirror, this time on the inside of the closet. When I opened it, I found nothing except a small box wedged into the floorboard. Inside, a locket, rusted, cracked photo inside. A girl, maybe 16, blonde, wide eyes, familiar, written on the back. They sewed her mouth shut so she couldn't scream. I didn't sleep that night. I researched everything I could about Hollow Creek. I found an old news article from 2005. Teenage girl found dead in 3rd floor apartment. Mouth sewn shut, no leads. Residents claim building is cursed. Case remains unsolved. She lived in 313. Her name was Emily Harrow. I wanted to leave. I packed my bag. I even called a cab, but something held me there, a kind of guilt. Like I disturbed something by simply existing in her space. Like I was part of her story now, so I stayed one more night just to see what she wanted. I whispered her name before bed. "Emily." "I'm sorry." The apartment fell silent until 3:13 a.m. This time she didn't knock. She spoke from the walls. "He's still here." I froze. "Don't let him find you." Then the lights exploded, the window shattered. And behind me in the cracked mirror, I saw a man, tall, dark, wearing a maintenance uniform, smiling, holding a needle and thread. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every creak in the hallway sounded like his boots. Every gust of wind felt like a breath on my neck. After I saw that reflection, that thing holding the needle and thread, something changed in apartment 313. It didn't feel haunted. It felt alive, hungry, and I think it wanted me next. I left the apartment the next morning and went straight to the city archives. The librarian gave me a strange look when I asked about Emily Harrow, but she still pulled up the microfilm from 2005. I read the full article. Emily Harrow, 16, was found dead in Hollow Creek Apartments, Unit 313. Investigators discovered her mouth sewn shut with wax thread, her hands bound, her eyes wide open. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. The coroner's report stated the sewing was done post-mortem. Suspect never identified. But the comments below the article were worse. Everyone knew about the janitor, creepy guy, always had a key, kept asking the girls weird questions. They found his locker in the basement with photos. No charges filed. He disappeared the night after Emily was found. Never Caught the janitor, he worked there, he lived there, and maybe in some form he still did. Back at the apartment, the air felt heavier. Windows were fogged, though it wasn't cold, and on the bathroom mirror, written backward in condensation, were the words, "He's underneath." I ran to the closet, pried open the floorboards, and beneath the wooden planks I found a small crawl space, dark tight, but I had to know. I lowered my phone and flashlight on dust cobwebs, and then a tunnel leading. Under the walls, someone had been living there. Boxes lined the space, old food cans, a torn mattress, scraps of children's drawings, Emily's name scribbled in red crayon and taped to the wall. Photos of every girl who had lived in apartment 313, including May. Stumbled back in horror. My photo was recent, taken from inside the apartment. Someone had been watching news. Still watching me that night. I slept with a knife under my pillow. Not that it would have helped. At exactly 3:13 a.m. the lights flickered again. Then the closet door opened on its own. Inside was Emily, not in flesh, but in light, a faint blue glow like moonlight through fog. She raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the mirror. Then she vanished. I stood frozen until I heard it from the mirror, scraping like fingernails against glass, and then tap, 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 3 knocks, but this time they came from behind the mirror. I grabbed the screwdriver and started prying at the glass behind. Instead of drywall was a hollowy small compartment inside. A journal-worn, leather-bound, belonging to the janitor. The entries chilled me more than the ghost ever did. She screamed. They always scream, but the thread makes them quiet, makes them listen. They forget me, but I remember them. This apartment listens, it remembers, it keeps them here with me. And the last entry, she's next. The one with the dark hair, the sad eyes, I'll make her quiet too. It was about May. Tried to leave at night, tried to run, but the front door wouldn't open. Not lock, not stuck, just frozen, like the air had hardened around it. The lights flickered, then went out, and in the hallway I heard the slow drag of boots, a rattle of keys, and his voice. Lena. Time to sew the silence. I backed into the bathroom. Heart pounding, knife in hand, the mirror began to fog, not with breath, but with images, scenes of Emily crying, of others before me, of that thing, whatever he was, threading needle after needle into the mouths of terrified girls. And then I saw myself sleeping, vulnerable, exposed. You're already mine, he whispered. I shattered the mirror with the knife, screamed at the top of my lungs, and for a second I thought I saw his hand reach through the crack in the glass, but then Emily appeared again. She pressed both hands against the shards, and she screamed a sound that shattered every bulb in the apartment, a sound that forced him back, and just like that, the front door opened. I ran barefoot, bleeding down the stairs into the street. I never looked back. I stayed with a friend that night, shaking, barely speaking. And the next day I went back with police. Apartment 313 was empty, but beneath the floor they found the crawl space and bones, not just Emily's, 6 girls, all with their mouths sewn shut. The complex was shut down, demolished a month later, but that doesn't matter, because evil like that doesn't live in walls. It lives in silence. And sometimes when I'm walking alone at night, I hear him again, boots behind me, the whisper of threads slipping through skin, and I wonder, did Emily free me? Or did she only buy me time? I moved across the city after that, changed my phone number, deleted every trace of the rental app, blocked out the name Hollow Creek from my memory like it was a curse word. For a few weeks I believed it had ended. I wanted to believe that once the building was torn down, the evil rooted inside apartment 313 would collapse with the bricks. But some things don't need walls to survive, they just need a way. And the first sign came in my new place. Modern, bright, no creaks, no shadows. It felt safe until I woke up one night to find my bathroom mirror fogged. The water hadn't been on, the room wasn't cold, but drawn into the condensation were 3 perfect lines, 1, 2, 3, and underneath them, "You moved." I didn't. I told myself it was a prank, a memory haunting me, not a ghost. But then I began seeing Emily again, not as a vision, not in blue light and dreams every night. She stood at the foot of my bed, her mouth now unstitched, bloodied, lips trembling. "He's still looking," she whispered. "And you're still listening," I begged her. "What does he want from me?" "I'm not the one who killed you." She looked down. "You answered, that's how he gets in." It made no sense until I remembered that first night, the knock, the one I didn't see anyone deliver, and how I whispered hello back. That was all it took, not a ritual, not a scene, just a reply, a crack in the silence. And now he was inside me too. The next signs came faster. I began hearing footsteps in the walls again, not in this building, not logically possible. Still I heard them. Then came the smell, metallic, sweet, like rust and rotting flowers. One morning I found my reflection in the mirror, smiling before I did. Then The mouth in the mirror began to move even when mine didn't. Whispered, "Thread the silence, thread her shut. Thread her soul." I tried therapy. The therapist lasted 2 sessions before abruptly canceling everything. She emailed me, "I've worked with trauma for 12 years, Lena, but I don't think this is trauma. I think this is something else, and I'm scared of it." One night, desperate, I set up candles and tried speaking to Emily again. Her veil had been destroyed in the fire. I had nothing of hers left except the memory. I sat in front of the mirror and whispered her name 3 times. "Emily, Emily, Emily." Nothing. Then the lights dimmed and her face slowly formed behind the mirror, half and half out, like she couldn't get through. Her lips moved. No sound. Then one word broke through. Like wind cutting glass. "Run." The mirror shattered. I didn't really couldn't best. It wasn't about leaving anymore. It was about ending it. The janitor, whatever he was feeding off, silence, secrecy, shame, and now that his building was gone, he needed something new to anchor himself to. Someone. Me. He was using me as the new vessel, and every time I stayed silent, ignored the mirror, closed my eyes, he grew stronger. So I made a decision. I wouldn't. Rooney would find where he came from. The trail took me to a storage unit in Queens, registered under the janitor's name, Charles Henry Madden. Claimed for years I pretended to be a distant relative. What I found inside made my blood curdle. Photos of girls, hundreds, every tenant who had ever lived in apartment 313, each photo marked with a date, a registering a cross over the mouth. Then I saw the last photo. Me. The date? Tomorrow. I snapped it. Burned the wristband as the ashes rose into the cold air outside the storage unit. I felt Emily again beside me, her whisper in my ear, "End him where it began." Where did it begin? Not at Hollow Creek, but in the mirror. I returned home and set every mirror in my apartment on the floor. One by one I smashed them until the final one cracked just a little, and instead of glass, it bled. Not liquid, not metaphor, actual blood. He was inside that one. I lit the place on fire, stood outside and watched it burn. People screamed, fire trucks came, but I just stood there, and for the first time in weeks I didn't hear the knocks. That night I slept in a friend's guest room. No mirrors, no glass, just quiet until 3:13 a.m. Knock. 3 soft knocks from the closet, and then the whisper, "You can't burn silence." The closet door stood still, but I could feel him behind it. Charles Madden wasn't just a ghost. He wasn't just a memory. He was something worse, an echo given form. A man whose evil outlived his body, whose sickness had soaked into mirrors, into walls, into silence itself. And now that I had burned every trace of him, he had nowhere left to go except me. The knock echoed through the room. Again 3 times, soft, rhythmic, patient. I gripped the edges of the bed, heart beating in my ears. Then a voice, a dry, cracking voice like wind through broken teeth. "You answered once. You'll answer again." "No," I whispered. "Not this time. Say nothing." Emily had once warned me, "Or he'll find the cracks." But it was already too late. I heard the creak of the closet door opening very slowly. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, paralyzed. Out of the darkness came nothing, not a figure, not a sound, just air, stillness. And then from behind me in the mirror I hadn't even known was there, his face appeared, not a reflection, just him grinning, needle in hand, thread between his teeth. "You made me loud again, Lena," he hissed. "Now let me silence you." I ran out the door, down the stairs, onto the street, barefoot and shaking, but he was with me. Every window became a mirror, every surface showed his grin. The back of my phone reflected him standing right behind me. Even when I was alone, the silence wasn't a void anymore, it was a trap. I checked into a hotel floor, no mirrors, called every spiritualist, exorcist, medium I could find. One agreed to help him. Old woman named Sister Mora, who didn't flinch when I said his name. "The stitched mouth man?" she asked. I froze. "You've heard of him?" She nodded. "He moves through silence, through mirrors, through memory. He marks the broken. You left a door open, child." I told her I wanted to. Close it, she looked me dead in the eye. "Then we must face him, or he has no power." That night she took me to an abandoned church. No mirrors, no reflections, no surfaces to trap him. We lit white candles, laid down Emily's locket, the burned remains of my photo, and the last page from his journal. Then she handed me a needle. "He threads pain, you must thread truth." Whispered everything out loud, my guilt, my fear, my loneliness. How I had answered that knock, not out of bravery, but out of desperation. How I had invited him, and how silence had always been my refuge, my escape from grief, from abuse, from the chaos of life. But he had twisted it into a cage. Now I refused to be his echo. The candles flared, the air thickened, and then he came, not from a wall, not from a mirror, from inside me. He clawed at my ribs, screamed through my throat. I felt my mouth twitch as if he was trying to stitch it shut from within, but Sister Mora began to chant louder, stronger, and then I screamed back, not in fear and defiance. The wind inside the church shattered every unbroken window, and the shadow burst from my chest like smoke twisting, shrieking, and then Emily appeared, her face no longer stitched. She reached for me, touched my hand, and whispered, "You broke his thread." He vanished. No scream, no shadow, just gone. And Emily? She smiled the faintest, softest smile, then turned and disappeared into the light of dawn coming through the window. It's been 6 months now. I live in another city. I've spoken about Emily in podcasts, in articles and journals. Every time I speak, I feel safer because the silence isn't empty anymore. It's mine again sometimes. Just sometimes. At 3:13 a.m., I still hear 3 knocks on my wall, but I don't answer, and I never will. Thanks for staying until the end of Emily's story and mine. If this tale haunted you, made you question the safety of silence, subscribe, like, and share, because some echoes shouldn't be forgotten. This story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries.